Sophie Toscan Du Plantier was born on July the 28th, 1957. Sophie was only 39 years old at the time of her death. Was a French television producer who lived in Paris, France, with her husband Daniel and her son. Living in Paris with her famous film producer husband, she lived a busy life, but as reported by family members, including her son, she was a quiet person who liked the serenity of being alone, and so West Cork gave her that peace and quiet and the solitude she so much desired. Her house in West Cork, situated in an isolated area of Schull, was an old Irish farmhouse. On the 23rd of December 1996, just outside her door, Sophie was violently murdered at her remote holiday home. The autopsy revealed that Du Plantier had 50 injuries. The state pathologist at the time, Dr. John Harbison, told an inquest into Sophie's death that she died from multiple injuries, including laceration of the brain and a fracture of the skull, caused by a blunt instrument. Her fingers were broken, presumably from trying to defend herself. She had apparently run through briars and encountered barbed wire, possibly in a bid to escape. No signs of sexual assault were found. One blood sample taken from the crime scene revealed DNA that didn't belong to Sophie, and her body was found the next day lying on the ground along the boreen to her house, and she was in her nightclothes. Her body was discovered by a neighbour on the morning of the 24th of December 1996. She was only 100 yards away from her front door. Several years ago, a second DNA sample was found on Sophie's bootlaces by a French forensics team and to this day remains unidentified. There was also never any sign of a break-in at the home, and 2 wine glasses were found inside in the sink but were washed, leading some to speculate that Sophie had let this person in and had known them. In the hours leading up to Sophie's murder, she had a phone call with her husband in which Daniel reported she didn't sound distressed and sounded tired, as if she were preparing for bed. One prominent suspect in the case, Ian Bailey, was a British journalist who was living in Schull with his then partner Jules Thomas at the time of the murder. He has been a major focus of the investigation and was questioned by Gardaí, but was never convicted, and no charges were laid against him. Ian Bailey was the first reporter on the scene following the murder, and he also continued to report as the murder case went on. He alleged to other suspects, such as suspects in France, and also claimed that Sophie had multiple male companions, as if in a bid to shift blame from himself. However, Ian Bailey has consistently denied any involvement in the murder. A number of people did allege in statements made to the Gardaí that Bailey admitted to them he was the murderer, but he insists these were mad moments of dark humour made under the influence of drink. In 2001, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Robert Sheehan, produced a scathing 44-page report on the Gardaí's evidence in their case against Bailey. According to Sheehan's analysis, a lack of forensic evidence, the handling of specific witnesses, and holes in the links made between Bailey and Sophie by Gardaí all hampered their case. It later emerged that key evidence was misplaced by Gardaí, including the metal gate where Sophie's body was found near. However, under French law, extraterritorial jurisdiction applies to the murder of a French citizen anywhere in the world. Therefore, Bailey was convicted in absentia by the Cour d'assises de Paris, France. The French court sentenced him to 25 years in prison and attempted to extradite him under a European arrest warrant. However, a High Court judge in Ireland ruled against the application, with Bailey remaining in Cork to this day. Regarding updates on the case, in June of 2022, Gardaí announced that a full cold case review into the murder of Sophie had commenced, with the purpose of finding new routes of investigation. Gardaí have issued official requests via government agencies and Interpol to speak to at least 20 witnesses in France and the UK who are thought to have information that could help the cold case review of the murder of Sophie. A Garda spokesperson said that perhaps in the original investigation these witnesses were constrained in some way, but with the passage of time they may feel free to give vital information. On Tuesday, December the 20th, 2022, a team of 6 officers wearing white forensic suits began clearing vegetation and undergrowth around the area where Sophie's body was discovered. The superintendent on this cold case review has alleged that hopefully with new forensic techniques there can be breakthroughs in this case regarding DNA or forensics evidence. It is also understood Gardaí hope to carry out some preliminary mapping work at the site over the following days of December. According to reports, the guards are looking at details of people of interest, including one French-speaking person seen in a Kerry pub the night after the killing. He reportedly had scratches on his face, and his description matches one given independently by another witness. According to the Irish Mirror, the Gardaí are also following up details of 2 French men who may have had a connection with Sophie in West Cork. A German musician named Karl-Heinz Wollny, a heavy drinking man with a history of violence, was also one of the early suspects. He lived a mile from Sophie's home and was playing in Crookhaven on the evening that Sophie was killed. He had no alibi. However, Wollny died by suicide in February 1997, according to the podcast West Cork, produced by respected investigative journalists Sam Bungie and Jennifer Ford. The investigation team has also issued requests through Irish, French and international agencies to interview a new suspect identified last year by Mary Farrell, a former shopkeeper in Schull, West Cork. Ms. Farrell originally told Gardaí she saw a man outside her shop in a black beret and long dark coat watching Sophie, and later saw him close to the crime scene. She first identified that man as Ian Bailey, but then retracted her information, claiming she was under pressure to identify him by Gardaí. Last year, she told Gardaí she can now identify the man as an associate of Daniel Toscan Du Plantier. However, Sophie's uncle, Jean-Pierre Gazot, claims that Miss Farrell has long been discredited and her theory is just a fantasy. As regards Sophie's husband, Daniel, he has since passed in 2003 in Berlin. However, when Daniel learned of Sophie's death, he remained in France and never visited West Cork, as he spoke of how he would rather remember her the way she was. He was questioned, but was never charged as a suspect in the case. And in a statement he made to Jean-Louis Chaumont, a police commandant at the time of Sophie's death, he spoke of Sophie as being very dynamic. She was a young, impulsive woman, sometimes to the point of being aggressive, and will not be in the habit of letting herself be walked on. He also went on to say, quote, "In effect, she was more than a tough character with a strict moral code who feared nothing. She rather avoided the world of society and gossip and preferred the chic and popular quarters where she felt more at ease." So far, there has been no major breakthroughs in the case. But for Sophie's remaining family, including her son, hopefully this case can be closed and the killer can be brought to justice.